Hello, we are partners to Grendel Press, the publicators, publishers of great horror. They have many authors, new and upcoming, and some well known. If you go to their website, the link is in the description. We're also sponsored by Dead End Society, which is a second-hand alternative clothing store. You can find them on Vinted. Their link is in the description. You can support the show by either buying our books, mine and Greg's, or you could buy us a coffee, if that's what you want to do. If you don't, we completely understand. There's also loads of other things in the description. Just go and check it out. Do us a favour. Maybe, what do you call it? When you, give us a star rating or something. Do that. That would be nice. And always remember, we love you. We love you? That's a bit creepy.
Sir William Marshal. There is a smell that every new village possesses. Fresh timber, green sap, wet earth, blood, sweat and tears of honest folk. And hope. As we rode from the old Roman road into the settlement, I found myself smiling despite the task before us. Children with no shoes but high spirits chased one another between half-built cottages. Laughing women hung washing between young fence posts. Men swung axes into enormous oak trunks with the enthusiasm only possessed by those who had not yet developed sore backs. The village was alive, although it was yet in its infancy. And as an infant, it was noisy. Painfully loud, you might say. Axes rang through the morning. Trees groaned before surrendering to gravity. The splitting and ripping of wooden flesh. Branches crashed into undergrowth. Somewhere, a carpenter had introduced his thumb to a hammer hard and was talking to it in colourful Norman French. It reminded me that civilization, whilst admirable, was an extraordinarily noisy affair. The forest, the woodland, the before, not so. Percy rode at the front of our little company upon his gleaming white destrier, which seemed to dance more than it did to walk. His armour had once again achieved impossible cleanliness. I suspected his squire polished it while Percy slept, each night. Or perhaps, while Percy blinked during the day. Gervais scratched at the healing cuts on his face. He was somewhat the antithesis of Percy.
Nice little place, what?
He spat and nodded towards another great oak that had just begun to lean.
Shame about the forest. I rather like forests.
I like him too,
said Fenrir. Percy looked over his shoulder.
My dear fellow, you want to remember that villages rather require timber, for, houses and whatnot.
His miming body language gave no idea of building or whatnot.
Gervais like to make them, villages, that is.
I think you might mean build them, Percy,
said Gervais.
Yes, that's the term, Gervais, yes,
said Percy.
Have you ever grafted, Percy?
Have I what?
Ever got your hands dirty? I don't know, chopped wood, perhaps?
Yes, I love to chop wood,
replied Percy, while he did some hip-thrusting thing and things with his hand that I assume were of a sexual nature.
Fuck's sake,
said Gervais.
Exactly,
said Percy, thinking that he'd made his point.
You see, my dear friend of sorts, the problem with cutting down trees is you eventually run out of forest and the things in it you need.
Percy considered this.
Well, yes, I really hadn't thought of that, I suppose.
Yes, I rather gathered as much, Percy.
Smiled Gervais. Fenrir stalked silently beside my horse. He had been angry since we had entered the valley. That alone was enough to trouble me. Normally, by this point, he would have criticized Percy's posture, Gervais' manners, and my choice of horse. Instead, only silence. Silence and anger. Fenrir? Nothing. I looked down. His ears were flat. His amber eyes never left the tree line. Fenrir, what is it? What's wrong? He inhaled slowly.
Can you smell it?
I breathed deeply. Smoke. Fresh pine. Horse dung. Was that bread? Maybe, someone was cooking onions? What, Fenrir? The smoke?
No, not the bloody smoke.
The sawdust?
No, that neither.
He stopped walking. I instinctively reined in my horse.
It bloody stinks of fear.
I frowned at him. The villagers look happy to me, they do. He slowly shook his great head.
No, it ain't them. It's the forest that's frightened. It's right quiet, it is.
A chill passed through me despite the warmth of the day. Before I could ask another question, a young boy came sprinting towards us. He could not have seen more than 10 winters. My lords? He skidded to a halt before Percy, wiping snot from his nose. This did nothing but wipe more grime across the boy's upper lip. Percy's horse regarded the child with considerably more interest than Percy himself did. My lords? Percy smiled magnificently. He leaned magnanimously forward in his saddle to regard the child before blazing his number 2 hero smile at the boy. I knew it was his number 2 smile because he had recently shown us his range of smiles for different tasks, and this was number 2.
You have, my gracious child, found us.
He waved a hand in our direction, and both Gervais and I waved at the boy with something of an embarrassed air. The child scratched his head and looked properly confused, he did. He pointed at the center of the village and looked like he was deep in concentration before he said, The priest says you're to come. Percy nodded solemnly, leaning forward and scruffing the boy's hair before removing his hand and looking at the gooey results of doing the scruffing on his kid leather gloves.
Ooh, it crawls. What? Okay.
He finally got back into character.
Ah, excellent, young man. We will follow you, and here's a penny for your efforts.
He said, flicking a coin in the boy's general direction and messing it up completely as it arced off in an unphysics possible direction, directly into a puddle. The boy looked at the puddle, then looked at Percy, his confusion even more apparent. The face was that creased affair one does when we regard an idiot.
Nice shot, Percy. Why didn't you just give the boy it? He's just there.
The boy's face returned to only perturbed as he knelt and moved his hand through the water. He found the penny, cleaned it on his shirt, and turned to look back at Percy, again wiping his ever-running nose with his sleeve and running into the village, shouting, "Follow me, my lords!" Percy leaned towards me and smiled his number 3 heroic smile.
Hey, I rather like it when, villagers know exactly who I am,
he said. Gervais nodded.
I'm afraid, Percy, that they don't.
Well, Gervais, they clearly do.
I'm afraid, Percy, they've never heard of you.
You heard the boy call me my lord.
He called all 4 of us my lords.
Percy looked disappointed.
Oh.
We followed the child towards the center of the settlement. The church was new. Horribly new. It was impressively already built with stone. Stone that was shining pale against the darker timber buildings around it. Fresh mortar scented the air. A simple wooden cross stood proudly above the rooftop. Standing before it, waited the village priest. He was definitely not new. He was actually older than I had expected. Grey of hair, broad of shoulder. His hands were rough enough to belong to a mason rather than a man of God. He bowed deeply. "My lords." He was polite, just enough. Percy returned a grateful inclination of the head before nodding to his herald to come forward. The man-clown had already got his script ready on the ridiculously long scroll that he carried. Gervais and Percy's eyes met. Gervais shook his head. Percy looked at Gervais, and he shook his head.
What? I do not think I should, announce my arrival?
He questioned. I could sense his utter disappointment. Percy looked at me in hope and smiled at me. But I shook my head too, in a no.
Pfft! Well, it is up to me then.
Percy sighed before he waved his herald back and wheeled his horse back to the priest.
Ahem! Fine people, hearken unto me. I am Percy of...
The priest continued speaking straight through him, he did.
Thank the Almighty that you've come.
Percy's mouth remained open. No sound emerged. I confess, I enjoyed that rather more than I should have. The priest looked exhausted. Not physically, you understand, but spiritually. Some burdens even sleep cannot remove.
I am Father Etienne.
He crossed himself almost unconsciously.
And you have come to rid us of the devil.
Fenrir growled. Not allowed to understand, but inside my thoughts. It was a low, sad sound. I felt it more than I heard it. Percy smiled reassuringly.
You are in luck, my good father. Yes, monsters have an unfortunate habit of discovering that they have inconvenienced the wrong nightly night when they meet me entirely. Many I have killed, but most have run as soon as they see me resplendent.
Gervais nodded.
Fuck's sake.
He said under his breath before.
We will do our best to find your beast, dear priest. And if we can kill it, we will.
The priest looked between them.
Oh, it isn't a beast.
His voice was utterly certain.
It is a hell-spawned, thrice-damned, plague-ridden demon.
Fenrir's growl became deeper. I tightened my grip upon my reins. The priest noticed this.
You've heard the stories, then?
I nodded carefully.
I've heard many stories. This one, however, my son, is true.
He pointed beyond the last cottages. The forest stood there, ancient, dark, watching us as we watched it.
We came here in God's name, to make a home for the lost that you see here.
He smiled proudly at what I assume was his flock that was not now looking lost.
We have cleared almost 1/2 mile of God-blighted wilderness already.
I followed his gnarled finger. Fresh stumps as far as the eye could see. Many of them, too many to count. Some were so large that our 4 men would scarcely have reached around them hand in hand.
Blighted, the bastard says.
Said Fenrir. Smoke drifted lazily from great heaps of burning branches. Oxen complained as they dragged another fallen giant from the woods. The priest's smile broadened.
With God's guidance and help, the darkness retreats a little further every day.
Well, blooming bravo to that, sir,
said Percy.
Blooming fuck off, Bravo.
Said Fenrir. Beside me, he stopped. Completely. I looked down. His gaze was fixed upon one enormous stump at the edge of the clearing. Its rings spread outward like ripples upon a pond. Must have stood for centuries, that tree. For what they say about those lines and the years that tree has lived are the truth. Centuries. Perhaps longer. Fenrir. His voice came to me slowly, almost too quietly to hear.
You see, it's painful, William. You see that tree?
He swallowed.
I remember when that tree was just a sapling.
I stared at him. For a heartbeat. I forgot to breathe. William Marshal. I have often found that every village believes itself to be unique, its own little place with its own little foibles. Usually, it is not unique, although it may have its foibles. All villages possess a blacksmith with 4 arms like oak branches. There is mud. There are children who somehow have permanently runny noses and dirty faces. There's sludge. There are dogs who believe horses are to be chased until those horses become terrifying monsters when they look back at them. Muck everywhere. And at least one elderly woman, usually with a squint, who stares suspiciously at strangers whilst peeling vegetables and cackling quietly to herself. This one had a particularly vulgar cackle. And there is manure. And shite. This village possessed all of those things. And in addition to that, it also possessed Lord Percy. That, in and of itself, made it considerably less ordinary.
Oh, how the bastard shines,
said the very unshiny Gervais.
My good and gracious people,
Percy announced as he swept his arms wide. Gervais rummaged through his pack and found an apple that he managed to eat loudly enough to punctuate Percy's pontification. It was impressive how aggressively a man could eat an apple.
my good people, fear ye no longer at the bane that haunts you, for I am here.
Percy's herald clapped enthusiastically. The villagers did not. Unclapped silence stewed. A scrofulatic chicken wandered between Percy's horse's front legs, pecking at crawly things on the ground. One of the villagers let go of a reverberating fart before he returned to fixing a fence. Another spat on his hands before gripping the shaft of his axe to get back to splitting logs. I felt Percy's ire flounder as he slowly lowered his arms and turned to us.
I sort of imagined
He murmured to me.
a little bit more enthusiasm.
They're probably just a bit busy, Percy.
Said Gervais.
Busy, Gervais?
Well, you see, they're trying not to die. You know, the usual peasanty sort of stuff.
Oh, yes, that sort of makes sense, I sort of suppose.
Poor Percy nodded thoughtfully.
Yes, I suppose that would rather occupy one's morning.
Father Etienne waved at us before he led us towards the edge of the village.
As I said, my lords, the attacks have become more frequent.
Gervais had dismounted and walked beside the priest at this time. Politeness, unsurprisingly. Gervais was a true diplomat. Percy stayed on his prancing pony. Fenrir and I hung back.
When did the attacks actually begin?
Gervais asked the priest. The man thought for a moment.
Last autumn, I believe.
Before you started clearing the forest?
Oh, no.
The priest smiled proudly at this.
Ah, they began afterwards.
Gervais stopped walking.
So
He scratched at his bruised jaw and grimaced.
So the attacks came after you started to hack down the forest and burn it?
Father Etienne looked puzzled.
Yes.
The final bite before he threw the core to a grotty-looking dog.
And before that, definitely nothing?
No, nothing.
The priest smiled.
The devil is angered because we have brought God's light into his wilderness.
Gervais looked at me. I looked back at him in a similar manner. Neither of us said anything. We didn't have to. Percy nodded gravely.
Ah, well, that sounds entirely reasonable.
Gervais sighed.
It really doesn't.
The priest continued walking.
We've driven the vile darkness of the forest far from our boundaries.
Fenrir walked beside me. His great paws made no sound upon the earth. For all but me, he was unseen.
He's wrong.
About what, Fenrir?
About bloody everything.
His voice carried none of its usual humour.
There were never any darkness here.
I looked around. The further we walked, the more I noticed. Everywhere, stumps. Some fresh, some weathered. Whole families of trees reduced to rough circles upon the earth, where once they had thrived. Branches burned in great smoking heaps, and the birds sang a sad lament. The few birds that remained. I realized what had disturbed me since we'd arrived. There should have been far more birdsong. The silence between their songs felt empty to me. The priest stopped beside a clearing.
There.
At first, I saw nothing unusual, just another stump. Then I realized it was truly enormous. I had never seen such a stump so large. It was truly vast. As a table, it would have seated an entire court. Father Etienne smiled.
The pagans worshipped this tree.
Percy raised an eyebrow.
What, really?
Oh, yes. They believed spirits dwelt within it.
He laughed warmly.
Poor misguided selves.
Gervais crouched beside the stump.
How old do you think it was?
Well, no one knows, of course, but then no one really cares either. It must have stood here before Duke William crossed the sea.
I think long before that.
The priest patted the weathered wood.
We cut it down in God's name. Its trunk forms the beams of our God's house.
Fenrir stopped completely. I felt him become still. Not the stillness of a hunter. This was the felt stillness of grief.
Fenrir?
He did not answer me. I looked to him. His golden eyes remained fixed upon the ancient stump. And after a long silence, he whispered,
It was a home.
The word home held pain within it. I felt the centuries inside it. Father Etienne mistook my expression.
Oh yes, a remarkable thing, isn't it?
I nodded absently.
Yes, remarkable.
Gervais had ignored all of us. He was studying the ground. He shifted leaves and dead foliage with his feet before bending. His fingers brushed softly through the damp earth.
What is it that you have found?
Percy asked.
Get off the bloody nag and come and see.
Percy swung and dropped, heroically, of course. He did most things heroically, after all. Before heroically dropping to one knee to not look at, but heroically observe the ground that Gervais was not heroically examining.
Ah, yes, twax.
Percy heroically... Never mind. He announced. Gervais nodded and sniffed while shaking his head.
Yes, Percy, there was until you bloody stood on them.
Ah, yes, sorry about that. Were they wolf?
Gervais frowned.
No, too large.
Percy stood.
Ah, yes, a bear then. I thought so. It's a bloody bear and a bloody big one. That's your beast.
He said, hands on hips and taking a manly stance. Gervais winced and shook his head.
No bear, Percy. It hasn't got claws.
Percy tried to think.
I don't understand.
Gervais pointed towards the deep of the forest.
It came from in there.
Yes.
And then
He pointed back towards the trees again.
it went back.
The priest frowned.
Well, what difference does that make?
Gervais looked up.
Well, you see, sir, I really don't understand. If it wanted your villagers...
Percy sometimes showed some sense.
Ah, yes, if it wanted to kill your villagers, then why did it leave?
He said. Silence settled over the clearing. The priest opened his mouth, closed it again. For the first time, he did not have an answer for this. Then I noticed someone watching us. A small girl stood half hidden behind a stack of chopped timber. She could not have been older than 5 or 6. She stared not at Percy, not at Gervais, not even at Father Etienne. She was staring directly at me. If this was not unsettling enough, the thought occurred to me that perhaps she was looking at Fenrir. Invisible Fenrir. Slowly, she stepped a little closer.
Hello there. Who's this then?
I asked the little thing.
Oh, this one does not speak,
said the priest. She lifted a hand to me and gave me a smile that would have melted the coldest of souls.
She's Driana. Driana, is it?
I said as I lifted her. Her tiny fist remained tightly closed. I smiled.
And what have you got there then, Driana?
She hesitated, then carefully opened her hand. Resting upon her palm was a single acorn. It seemed perfectly ordinary to me, brown, smooth, no larger than the end of my thumb. And Fenrir gasped, not loudly, not dramatically, just a sharp intake of breath.
William,
His voice had become little more than a whisper now.
don't touch it.
Why, Fenrir? What is it? There was another long silence. Long enough for my heart to begin beating faster. When finally he spoke, His voice sounded older than the forest itself.
Because
He looked at the ancient stump, then at the tiny acorn.
that tree should never have been able to bear fruit again. Fenrir, wolf soul. The child closed her hand around the acorn. William put her down, smiled gently and thanked her. The others were still discussing bloody footprints. Men, always looking down, always searching for answers already written upon earth. They really thought to look into the trees. I did. Something had watched us since we entered clearing. Not girl, no. I dismissed her and I dismissed it. Maybe what were watching us were a fox or a deer or one of them bloody ravens that insists upon knowing everybody else's business. Then wind changed. One scent, one impossibly familiar scent, older than kingdoms, older than churches, older than language William now spoke. My head snapped towards the tree line, between two ancient oaks. He stood there, enormous, larger than I by a lot, silver fur with streaks as black as winter through midnight. His eyes were pale blue at frozen glacial rivers. No flesh, not flesh. He weren't spirit neither, he was one of us, a wolf posit, one of my people. For one glorious heartbeat, I forgot everything, village, hunt, fallen oak, William. I simply stared. Brother. The word escaped me before I realised I'd spoken it, and he heard. I could tell his great ears lifted, his eyes widened, recognition. There, for only a moment. Recognition. Volko! His name returned to me from 1,000 forgotten winters. The forests beyond Ural mountains, snow deeper than a reindeer's shoulder, laughter at wolves beneath moon, family. He took one cautious step towards me. Hope stirred in me bloody heart, in me bloody ancient heart, and then he looked beyond me at William, at Percy, at Gervais, at Father Etienne. Such bloody bitterness. His expression changed, hope vanished, it became fear. Not fear at men, fear for me. He shook his great head once, a warning, then turned and ran. Volko! I bounded after him instinctively. William stumbled as me thoughts tore away from his.
Fenrir?
Branches exploded apart as the great wolf soul vanished deeper into Brotonne.
Fenrir!
I scarcely heard William now. Only the pounding of invisible paws, the sense of family, the sense of sorrow, and somewhere ahead, the unmistakable smell of blood.
Gervais. I watched my friend. He was shouting. The voice. I had to ask. William, who the fuck is Fenrir?